Yeah, so who wants to start first on basically how they are feeling?
So here we go back at them with another episode of the More Than podcast.
Tell her to tune into the.
We got special guests with us today. We got Justin Powell. We got Sherry Kitchen. They've joined the chat with us today, the conversation. And today we're pretty much going to be talking about just how we're feeling during this time with the whole George Floyd situation. We're going to talk about different solutions, different ways we feel like we can combat it, and just hopefully educate, hopefully encourage other individuals going through the same thing, kind of get it going. So again, my name is Cornell Gorman with my co-host over there. I don't know if it's to your left or to your right. What's your name, sir?
Who, for me, DJ? I'm on. What?
You said for who?
I was in my phone. Calm down. Nah, so it's DJ. And then we got my wife, Jamise. She goes by Mies. But yeah, man. Yeah, just the focus today right now is to talk about basically the aftermath and our feeling of still the George Floyd and in many other cases. I believe it's a lot of cases that are being called to be either investigated that once never was investigated, and cases that just was very highly questionable and shut down prematurely.
Yeah. So yeah. Let's just start off with like initial feelings. First of all, did everybody watch the video?
No, I can't watch it.
I did.
No.
I watched.
I'm the only one.
I watched the video. Like, I guess I did watch the video. I guess I watched all of it, and I couldn't. I mean, I didn't hear when he was calling out. After the knee was on the neck, I was done. I couldn't.
I inadvertently caught it. People share everything on Facebook, good, bad, ugly. So I clicked on it, got about 5 seconds into it, and I got out of it. I was like, I can't do it.
Yeah.
That's pretty much how I caught it. It was like I was scrolling and seeing it, and then I saw the whole knee on the neck, and then I was like, oh no. And then I was just out. I was out.
The pictures was enough for me.
Jeez, like I was trying to avoid it, honestly. You know what I mean? Like it was like the whole Ahmaud Arbery thing. And like that was heavy on me still a little bit, you know what I mean? Then like the Breonna Taylor thing happened. It was just like I can't right now. You know what I mean? Like I just didn't want to deal with it to an extent. And like you said, like it just kept on popping up on the news feed, and I was like, let me just watch the video. And like it's something that I can't unsee now. You know what I'm saying? And like me and my wife, we had a discussion like about a month ago or a month or two ago, and she was like, is it possible to feel more than one emotion at the same time? And I was like, no, that's impossible. Like, there's no way you can be happy and angry at the same time. But I stand to be corrected, because watching the video, watching just the aftermath, even how I'm feeling now, like there's just all these different types of emotions I'm literally feeling at the exact same time. You know what I mean? Like I am on edge, and I just got to be very aware of who I'm talking to, what I'm talking about. Like even the movies I watched, like I was watching Just Mercy, and like that was almost too much for me. You know what I'm saying? And it was almost too much because of the different emotions that was hitting me. It's like, this is just too much for me right now. You know what I'm saying? Like I want to cry, like I want to punch a TV. I'm about to cuss you out. I'm about to like all at the same time. You know what I'm saying? Like, this is not okay. This is not cool. You know what I mean? And I really don't know what it was for me personally, like with this George Floyd situation. It might just be a perfect storm of everything. You know what I'm saying? Lining up at the right time. But like I cried when I watched that video, man. You know what I'm saying? Like this is the first time I ever broke down in tears with any of the videos that I've seen. You know what I'm saying? Like this one brought me to. I'm mad that they brought me to tears. You know what I'm saying? That might be like an egotistical thing. Like I'm mad that you made me cry. You know what I'm saying? Like it's
crazy you say that, because it's almost like you become so accustomed to it.
Yeah.
That when one of them breaks you, it's like, oh wow. I know for myself, I didn't watch the video, you guys. I couldn't watch it. Probably like 3 days after the incident, I got up, made breakfast, was sitting in my living room, this very room, and I just broke down crying. Like Justin said, I know, we overshare everything on social media. So what I saw was like, you scroll and you get to a video and it'll just go on its own. The only part I saw was him calling out for his mama.
Mm.
And I think, just to go back to what Cornell was saying about how you can feel multiple emotions at one time, I think in my personal self, I felt helpless, hopeless, and it enraged me. Like literally, like enraged me. Like it enraged me. Like that's it. I'm risking it all. No explicitives necessary, but it made me say I don't have any of those to give. And you know what I'm talking about. So I'm just thinking like that's it. And it's crazy because when you see it repetitively, you just kind of try to do what you need to do to survive. Because we still got kids to raise, we got jobs, we have to attend, we got bills to pay. The world's not gonna stop, while we mourn the loss of a brother or a sister.
Exactly.
But it reminded me of the time when Philando Castile was murdered in front of his baby's mom and his child. Like, I remember a church pastor talking about that, and I just sat in the corner and I wept like I knew this man, like I knew him personally. And I think watching it take a toll on the Black community in general and trying to explain that to other demographics who are not Black has been exhausting.
Yeah.
And I think I've had zero patience for it this go round. Like I knew this time was gonna be different.
And I'm upset that I even got that. I feel like the burden is on us to have to educate and explain the systemic oppression that Black people have gone through for 400 plus years. Yeah, like we can speak from our perspective and our experience, but like we shouldn't be the only ones that's reading books. We shouldn't be the only ones that's learning, that's trying to figure out what we can do next. Like Justin, man, tell us what you got going on. Like,
Man, it's been a whirlwind of events these past like 2 weeks. When I initially, like you said, saw the video on Facebook, I couldn't watch it because I hate when people share stuff like that because I just imagine if it was me, and I wouldn't want my parents to find out that way. I don't want people to find out. I don't want that to be the last image somebody sees of me is dying on the street like that. But what it did for me, and I'm middle class. I mean, I got a good job. I'll say middle class, and I'm doing well for myself. It made me feel hopeless. To reiterate what Sherry said, it don't matter how much money I make. It don't matter what type of car I drive. It don't matter who I hang out with, how much I go play golf, how much I rub elbows with these people. I felt completely hopeless. And I think my perspective changed when I had a child because I'm not just living for me now, I'm living for him. And I felt hopeless for him. But what it did was it fired me up. And it just set off like a chain reaction because that happened. And then we had a mayor back in my hometown make a stupid comment about it on Twitter. So then it really just set me off. And I was on a warpath to get to who I had to. He said, if you can talk, you can breathe.
Mm-hmm.
He said, if you can talk, you can breathe. And so that literally just set me on fire because my child lives in that city, is going to go to those schools, is going to encounter those police if it happens the same way that I did. And I had to go see him. Like I had to go to his office and see him.
yeah,
Because it was just that serious, man. And it like I said, it made me feel hopeless. If it wasn't but for 2 or 3 minutes, but it made me feel hopeless and take a step back like, hey, no matter what you got, if you get pulled over by the cops, it could all end. They don't care what you in, what you driving, how you look. It could be over. And it just made me like it, man. It really, the bad thing about it is when we see that, and I watched the guy on Breakfast Club that was talking about like the way we think. When we see victory, you up and you bouncing around. Like for my sports people, when I don't know if you all watched The Last Dance when it came on ESPN about Michael Jordan and the Bulls, but he's arguably one of the greatest winners of all time. So as I'm watching that, I feel like I can go outside and dunk on somebody right now, which I can't. I'm 7 months out of a surgery. I cannot go do that. But it makes you feel like you can do it. When we see things like death, anything like that, when we see people take L's, it's like psychologically you take a L and it keeps you from being able to overcome certain things. So that's why I didn't want to watch the video, but I did get kind of trapped into watching a piece of it.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Gotcha. And you have anything, DJ, real quick?
I mean, I didn't watch it. I mean, after seeing basically the pictures did it for me. Like none of this stuff, it's real like numbing to see. So saying none of this is new is just basically saying like all this has always happened. Like we've seen variances of this.
Mhm.
So for me to see it, like of course I was just like, oh man. And of course, when I first seen it, I was like, they're gonna try to bury this. Like these officers are gonna get off. Like they're gonna try to bury it, and make him look like he just deserved to get what he got, right? So waking up mornings after that, like waking up mornings, it was just a depressing mornings. Like you couldn't find joy after that. Like it was hard not to be like, oh, this black man just got murdered while he was detained. Like, and you've heard cases of like, oh, well, this person been beaten while they were in cuffs and just wound up dead, and nothing's came from it. But since it's on video and people have pictures, it's just real. Like it traps your mind in that time.
You know
So-
why this one hurt is because all of the rest of them we've heard about. We've heard about Trayvon. We've heard about Tamir Rice. We've seen, I can't think of the guy's name that turned around and he started running and they shot him in the back. This is the first one where somebody's within 5 feet of somebody dying from start to finish, and you can hear the man say, "I can't breathe." You can hear him take his last breath. That's what's got, like I said, the white America that's with us on this cause. That's why, because they heard it. They've heard the stories, but it was always a like, well, we don't know what happened before. This one we know from start to finish what happened.
And I think too, just going back to something Justin said about almost the vulnerability and just the raw exposure to it can be so dishonoring. But we live in a society where you actually feel like if you catch this on camera, that's your form of protecting him because you know your limitation. Right. I even heard a white commentator make a comment as to if you really felt like he was dying, why didn't the crowd intervene? And all I could think about is the young lady who filmed it and everybody who watched it feeling merciless.
Yep.
And I watching people ask questions and prompts on Facebook about what do you think you would have done if you were there? And I mean, I just think it's crazy to me that like for some reason we've lost sight that we're all human beings. You could be in error and you need to be accountable for your error. So why should your authority be above mine when it comes to the interjection of saving someone's life? And I think that that's always been the problem. It's not that we're saying black people don't commit crimes. They do. But even when you take into account what he's being accused of, passing a fraudulent $20 bill. So I think my outrage is number one, we've been in economical downfall. First of all, at least for the past 2 months, there's over 40 million Americans without a job. So if you're telling me the reason for your excessive violence towards this man is over $20 in an economic crisis, it's just it's unreasonable. Yep. So then it asks you have to ask yourself, well, who's policing the police now?
Right.
Because I feel like I would have probably, and this is me, y'all, my reckless abandonment, okay? Don't judge me. I'm just telling y'all. I could see myself putting myself aside and not being worried about preserving myself and interjecting. Exactly. But then what would happen to me too?
Exactly. The same thing with me. I would probably, number one, I would have gave him 10 seconds. I would have asked him, hey man, you're owning, try to talk. Action number two, I'm spitting on him because nobody likes to be spit on. So if I spit on him, just maybe he'll take his knee off his back and come towards me. If he doesn't move when I spit, then I'm going at him. I will put my hands behind my back and I will fall on him, or I will try to bump him or anything like that. But that's the thing, having it on camera, I can't let nobody go out like that in front of me. I'm not. And I would pray to God that if something happened to me like that, somebody would have the will to say, okay, I may get beat up, I may get tased,
you may get killed.
I may get killed,
Absolutely.
But you can't die in front of me. Cornell, you on the
And
grind.
we've been conditioned for it. Like the expectation is it. And you can see the crowd with a lot of trepidation, wondering what should we do?
Right.
What can we do? But I think watching, just even knowing the mindset of like slavery and what they would do to slaves in front of other slaves to set a tone is the exact trauma
That's what
that
it
we
was.
face as African
Literally the
Americans,
same
Black
exact
people
thing.
in this nation. And I read a great piece today by Sean King, and he was talking about 9/11 when the Twin Towers went down. On the first plane, they didn't know what to anticipate, and the men, the plane dropped, it crashed, everybody went down. And it said on the second plane, they made a decision that they knew what their method was. So they made the choice that you can't take everybody with you. And I think right now our country is at that place where people are actually pissed off that they have to play a part. Because Black people have been playing this role solo so long that it's like real loud and inconvenient right now that it might require something of you too.
Right.
So
Yeah.
we normally die alone. We get arrested alone. We do all these kind of things alone. So it's kind of almost like being in that crowd. Somebody's thinking, well, I would go, but I don't want to go alone. Because if it ain't more than just me, this is probably going to end badly for me and the gentleman on the ground. You know what I mean? I think that
Right.
that says something.
But for me,
Yeah.
the whole thing, like, I don't want it to stop though at police brutality. Like, I want everybody to understand a lot of the frustration comes from a lot of the oppression that we've had to deal with as Black people. Like, just for me personally, you know what I'm saying? Like, when I go on the job, how I feel like I have to be twice as good as my white counterparts in order to be seen and identified. Like, I've literally gone in jobs knowing I was better than everybody. Like, we had open auditions in front of everybody. I know I killed it, but they went with somebody they were more comfortable with, and not even getting like the top main job, like the lead role, but like there were 3 other people chosen before me. You know what I'm saying? Like, okay, if I wasn't one, you mean to tell me I wasn't 2 or 3? Okay, fine, that's cool. Or when I go into the gas station, you know what I'm saying, and I see T-shirts like with the American flag on it, and it says, if this flag offends you, then I'll help you pack up your bags. First of all, we built this country. Like, if we talking divorce, like, I want my cut. 400 years of oppression, I want all of that back. You know what I'm saying? Like how Starbucks, how they talk about how they basically don't even want to see our oppression. Like, you can't rock Black Lives Matter stuff. So like, not even the lethal stuff that's killing us, that's murdering us in the street. Like, just the constant oppression that's just me. You know what I'm saying? And I feel like some people, like, we've been so conditioned to it, like we don't even look for it sometimes. You know what I'm saying? Like, some of that stuff, like, it takes me a minute just to sit and look and assess and watch. And now I'm more alert and aware of the stuff that's happening to me. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, you look like I was the token Black guy in that group. You know what I'm saying? Like, just little stuff like that. And it frustrates me, it irritates me. And it's not just the knee on the neck. You know what I'm saying? It's not just the police brutality. It's all of it. You know what I'm saying?
Because it's a lot of subtle. So with me being from Mississippi, I'm used to loud racism. Like I said, I went to school in probably 80% white. I was a good athlete, good student, didn't get in trouble, so I didn't really get a lot of it. They love you when you can catch a ball. They love you when you can dunk, you can hit home. They love you when you're doing that. They fine with it. But I had to kind of learn to navigate it. And then once I got here, it was just kind of like, okay, it's the covert stuff. I work at Cerner. Okay, cool. We all get ready to go to lunch. You come outside. Oh, you got a new car. Yeah, Negroes can't have new cars. Like, it's not a BMW, it's a Honda Accord. Like, it's just a basic car. What are you talking about? And then they find out where you live at. They like, oh, okay, well, they just ask where you stay. Oh, I stay in North Kansas City. Oh, you stay in North Kansas City? Oh, you must have money. Like, they just asking all these stupid questions. It's just, like, you can't, and then everybody talks about my accent. They're like, oh, you country. And then we may go into a meeting and I switch to, and they're like, oh, so you can turn it on and turn it off? Like, no, I know how to talk around y'all and I know how to talk in front of executives. It's 2 different
Code
ways.
switching.
Yeah, you have to know. You got to learn. It's racism inside of racism inside of racism, because you're gonna get it from your own people. You're gonna get it from, them, and it's just it's
Can I
crazy,
can
man.
I can I piggyback off of something you just said too, Justin? I realize in the midst of everything taking place, y'all, something that's bubbled to the surface is when we're so conditioned to be palatable that we get offended at each other when we don't conduct ourselves in a certain way. Even though time has taught us that behaving in a certain manner does not equate to equality. It's not going to ensure our safety, our protection, our value, our dignity. And I remember it's so crazy because I was thinking about this and I was watching Black people get mad at other Black people because we, of course, every culture has a hierarchy. Okay. So I know we've all heard this before. When you have the African American community, you have the Black community, and you got the niggas, just like if you were Latino or Hispanic, you got the Puerto Ricans, and then you got the so-and-sos, you got the Mexicans, and et cetera, and et cetera. And I think watching us tear each other down because we feel like we're making each other look bad instead of just, and I'm not saying that we can't implement character and practice to better ourselves, to govern ourselves with an honor or dignity of our ancestors. But what I am saying is buying into this idea that we can perform a certain way and be worthy of acceptance and respect is a Jedi mind trick. That's not happening. We've thrown our scholars out there,
Right.
the most articulate, the most knowledgeable, those of us who have careers, that we've done everything they could want, our entertainers, everything. And that's obviously not the objective because that's not sufficient. And every time we meet it, they change the bar. So, you're going into a business like Justin and it's like, oh, well, you got a Honda Accord. And it's just kind of
Just
like
a basic car.
just a basic car. And so like we still chasing after it though and shaming each other over it.
I felt you, Cornell, when you it's a thing my granddaddy used to say, and I don't know if any of y'all watch Scandal with Papa Pope, Olivia Pope's daddy.
Yeah.
And so he had her conditioned because she played the game, and it was one episode where he had her so trained that she made a mistake, and he said, "You have to be what?" And she said, "Twice as good." And he said, "To what? To get half of what they have. We got to be twice as good to get half of what they have." And my grandfather preached that. My daddy preached that. And it was like, even though our best is enough, going in those situations, you better be twice as good to get just a little bit of the pie. But then I think we have to flip that mindset to, I don't have to get that pie. I get my own pie.
And that's where I'm at with it.
That's what I was going to say.
Like I was going to say, go ahead.
I was going to say, is it that we are stuck in doing better to be accepted rather than thinking, all right, rather than learning and then building for ourselves and not looking for a outward source of confirmation and building which.
And it's a whole mindset. And
what we already had, which was Black Wall Street, and which was burnt down and isn't documented in history, which a lot of our history is hidden, which is the gore of what is white America and white supremacy. But basically what you were talking about, Sherry, talking about what was displayed in front of many slave plantations to make examples. I'm pretty sure that's what is conditioned the mindset of, all right, if I down talk or backstab my fellow Black person, I'm going to get ahead because that's pleasing to my white oppressor.
Yeah. Kind of like keep the other slaves in check. So it's kind of like, I noticed when people started to protest, because that's what they were doing, not rioting, for clarity of language. Protest, it was still, well, listen, don't draw attention to that. And I know a part of it is as millennials, I think, I know something that we're going to talk about is what can we do actionable to move forward. But I think as millennials, we have to get out of the mindset that somebody else is coming to save us. We up next. We just became the adults. It's on us. That's number one. But I think a part of that is we have grown accustomed to hiding in the form of the American dream that we have been conditioned to settle for. First of all, we're excluded from it, number one, but the pieces that we've settled for, I can go on vacation. I can buy Louis bags. I can, send my kids to privileged white schools for grand education. I can do these little things. We're not really thriving. We just living the best parts of life that they're offering to us. I think that our priorities sometimes can be in a disarray. And I'm not saying don't celebrate life. Live your best Black life. But what I am saying is I think sometimes we hide in that because of the trauma. So right now, I feel like a part of what's so shocking is people are choosing to come out of their good professions, their good benefits, especially in a time like this. It's almost like we feel like we don't have no choice. You know what I'm saying? And I think that says a lot because, we don't want to be interrupted. Nobody does. It's inconvenient. You don't know what we going to go into. You don't know if things ever going to be the same. It's so much uncertainty. But I think that we've just become accustomed to settling. And so that's what we do. Well, I can't control everything, but my kids are going to be good. Until when? I can't, because I remember seeing some Black men, this same conversation last year, which is hurtful, same conversation, just kind of talking about the NFL and Colin Kaepernick kneeling and how people didn't want to support him in kneeling because they didn't want to jeopardize what they have, which I totally understand being Black, not want to jeopardize your bag because you trying to leave a legacy. But then you have to ask yourself, and this is what I challenge, what's really the legacy? Because if your kids still going to be treated like niggas with money, what legacy are we really leaving?
Right.
So I get the money and the security, but then it's like, so why we can't do both? Why do we got to choose money and quietness and, just a form of false security, a form of false peace and acceptance and not liberation and justice? You know what I'm saying? And dignity and humanity, you just being treated humane. So it's like just feeling like you got to even choose.
That's crazy.
Right.
So I feel like go ahead, Jamise.
What I was gonna say is it was really weird for me when this all happened that I was like super duper triggered because like whenever we were out, like me and DJ would go run in the mornings and stuff like that. We run into a lot of white people. And whenever we were out, they were being majorly like super nice. And for some reason, that really triggered me. Like it had me like, I don't know what it was because any other time y'all don't want to talk to nobody.
Yeah.
But now that somebody has been murdered and y'all actually physically see it, y'all want to smile, good morning, how you doing, all of this stuff. And it, for some reason, it just triggered me. It made me sit there and really think like, wow,
I understand that.
all this happened. And now y'all want to be nice. But at the end of the day, like Pastor said, being nice does not mean anti-racism.
Yeah.
It does not mean you're with us at the end of the day. And that's another thing that was just like thinking all of that at the same time. It just triggered me. I was like, what? And then I'm sitting here thinking like, what about my husband? What about, when we have kids? Why? Like I was having nightmares. And that's facts. I had nightmares probably about 3 days in a row and cried every single day that I had them.
I couldn't sleep, Jamise.
Every single day. And I woke up and cried to DJ. I was like, literally my words exactly. I don't want you to die.
Right. And I don't want to die. I
feel
you.
Exactly.
I'm gonna take it back to what Justin has said. Basically, being from Mississippi and seeing racism in your face. I was talking to Steve when we were over your house seat, and I was saying like the only positive thing that came from Trump's presidency is the fact that you see racism in your face. Like him stepping into office and putting his racism on display made it comfortable for a lot of whites to come out and just blatantly be disrespectful and racist in your face and not be ashamed to be racist in your face anymore. So it's like we took a major racism isn't like
took some steps back.
took what 70 years back, and then to get back to this point and going to Sherry's point, like I don't think it's a sense of millennials wanting to play the background and thinking that's going to help them inch further to the goal of being comfortable in America, I feel like it's all right. What you've been taught in history, all right, these two powerful men stood up for a cause and basically pushed through civil rights and was massacred and murdered in your face. Wasn't nothing uncovered about how they were murdered. You have hearsay about who murdered them. So it's just like, all right, whenever that next person step up, if it's me, will America push hard enough when I'm murdered to care about who murdered me, or will it just be a thing? I was the next great that was murdered and didn't get to finish, and was just somebody that's gonna make it in the history books and was great but got murdered before I finished.
Yeah.
So like,
And
go ahead, Shane.
go ahead, Cornell.
Okay, I just know DJ Big like like because I kind of hear him like it doesn't stop right here is what I just heard. You know what I'm saying? It's like he's big, like DJ ain't with the like he's like why are we still protesting? You know what I'm saying? Like why are we still at this point? You know what I'm saying?
I got something for you.
Like for me,
And the crazy part, DJ, is this is the longest standing protest I have witnessed in all of my life of seeing black people be murdered.
I think it's necessary
on camera.
Here's the thing. I think the steps are awareness, engagement, come up with a plan, slowly implement that plan. But before we go forward, we have to become aware of what the issue is and what the problem is. And like even for black people, like we talked about double consciousness a little bit earlier, and I was gonna hit on that a little bit. You know what I'm saying? Like I have white people, like I used to be a personal trainer, like I have white people that really rock with me. You know what I'm saying? But like I know this racism thing really exists, like on all the points that I talked to earlier. So like even in me wanting to speak out, even in me want to talk about it, like there's still like this battle, you know what I'm saying, of me wanting to stand up and not offend somebody. And I feel like that is like in my pain, in my hurt, in all my suffering, I'm still having to be aware and care about your feelings while I'm in my pain. Like that pisses me off right now a little bit too. But that's neither here nor there. But I definitely feel like we have to make people aware, ourselves aware, because like there's black people that understand the Black Lives Matter movement, but they don't understand it to like its root, its core. Like they, you know what I'm saying? Like they just kind of playing with it, like rolling with it. That's just I just like that's the fact of it. You know what I'm saying? And then after that, like we need to begin the conversations and have those uncomfortable conversations. And I should be able to express my pain in a painful manner in the way that I feel it. You know what I'm saying? And like I'm not trying to hurt nobody, but I'm hurt, and like y'all know y'all did this. You know what I'm saying? Like don't.
I'm gonna trip you out. So I'm coming into my building the other day, and it's a white lady outside selling pottery. On the front, she got a big sign that says proceeds will be donated to Black Lives Matter. Do you think she spoke to me?
Come on, man, for real.
And the thing is, and what I realized by going to these protests, people wait, infiltrators wait until times like these, and they come in and set up an alternative agenda. So what happened down in Petal, where I'm from Petal, Mississippi, not a lot of the African American community got out, but the protest was put on by white people. Now the thing is, they are out there with the Black Lives Matter, you know, going up to people and blah 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 blah. Okay, I'm cool with Black Lives Matter, but this is my thing when it comes to Black Lives Matter. I'm not gonna go hold up a sign in front of a white man saying Black Lives Matter because he ain't got the power to validate if my life matters or not. So why am I going to him for a authority that he don't have? He don't have that. He does not have that. The only person that can validate my life is God. He don't have that. And when you go to them with these Black Lives Matter and hands up, don't shoot, the only time they're gonna understand that Black Lives Matter is when it's a consequence for messing with a black life. So Cornell, if they do something to you, you my boy. DJ, you my boy. If they do something to you guys, I gotta ride for y'all like I would ride for my family. Now, I'm not saying go do nothing crazy, go kill them or nothing like that. But if we're going to take them to court, we got to take them to court and see it through. That officer that did something to you, we got a right to protest in front of his house. And if that means we got to, you know, work shifts to where I'm out there sitting in my car, where he see me every day, when he got to feel the pressure. He has to feel the pressure because the Klan had no problem putting pressure on us when it was time to vote. They didn't have, you know, a problem coming torching your house. Or you know,
but the only thing I would challenge in that, Justin, is it has to be a repercussion greater than you,
right?
At hand,
right?
Which is, you know, I think one of the solutions is supporting the black leaders we have. Sometimes I think we could be real critical. Like one conversation I had, I called up my own pastor, because I know recently here P. Diddy had a family meeting. We're gonna X out the fact Amy Schumer was there. Let's put that to the side for another time. But real talk, one of the things he has stated is, I want, where's the representation of the black church? Like, why we ain't invited to the family meeting? Right. And he called me up because he know we gotta go with this, because we both millennials already. We got to go round and round about this. I grew up in hip hop, and one thing I told him is I honestly feel like, and not for loudness sake, not for showman's sake, I feel like hip hop has been moving the needle forward for the culture. Not just with their words, but also with their money. So for me to hear people who like, and I'm not talking about him, I'm talking about other people I hear criticize who lead from the back, you get really kind of agitated, like, hey, how about you be quiet? You ain't putting up no money. You won't even sign an online petition, but right. You want to get on here, you want to criticize what people who moving us forward is doing. And it might not be the leader that you expect. It might not even be the leader that you wanted, but they have a right to be in those rooms. So all I was thinking is, the scholars used to think the rappers wasn't good enough to sit here with us. Yeah. They had to prove themselves. Am I right? They had to prove themselves. They had to get some education, read a book, be well spoken, be articulate for you, and bring some money for you. Sit at this table. You got to do something. Right. Women like Angela Rye, black women who know politics, who know civil rights. They didn't just get to sit there because they're women already. They had to fight to sit there. And sometimes I feel like even us as the church, sometimes we feel like we don't have to fight to be in that room. We don't got nothing to prove. But history has taught us that we have done some, and I'm going to say us because we're a collective, and you can't slice it and dice it how you really want to. So I'm going to just say the church as a collective, we have done some very unsavory, untasteful things, and we do have to earn people's trust. So why aren't we good enough to have to earn a position at that table? So sometimes when I hear people, when they come with the criticism, it's kind of like, well, what are you doing? You know what I mean? So you just kind of watch the breakdown of how I think as a community, sometimes we need to confront each other about our actions, the way we handle each other, and the way we treat other people. Now, one thing I can say for sure is what I did notice this time was it wasn't like a lot of black people were sitting in the cut waiting this out. They was calling out affluent black people who were busy trying to protect their business, which I could totally understand because you work hard for that. You know what I'm saying? But they were too busy trying to, I feel like, contain what was the chaos. And with all due respect to that, I think this time I woke up to feeling like, okay, I just realized something. This is going to cost everybody something. Yeah. Everybody not going to pay the same price, but it's going to cost everybody something. Some of y'all is comfortability. Some of y'all is your business. Some of us, it's our jobs at our workplace. We're speaking out too voluminously, fully. But it's going to cost everybody something. But what I do know is I'm tired of black people paying the price quietly alone. So I work at a Target as a manager. So I've been in these rooms. You feel what I'm saying? So when I hear customer after customer or coworker who is white after coworker approach me about a building, well, we all got to pay a cost, don't we?
Yeah. I think with like pastors, because I said the same thing like at the protest that I went to. It's probably 60 churches in a city that's not that big, and the only two pastors was my uncle, my home church back at the house. He's on the school board, does a lot of things in the school, been in that community all his life. So he's that person that when it's about to go down, the white people calling, hey, Anthony, come check this out for us. Mm-hmm. And then you got another guy, Ben Skipper. He's at one of the probably the biggest white church there. And they get along. We have like services, or we've always had services together and things like that. Two great men, but that's 2 out of 60. And like I was calling pastors out at the protest. I was like, there's no reason why it should only be 2, and it's the same 2. And then after talking to my uncle, he was like, you're absolutely right. And so everybody was asking him about speaking, and the Department of Homeland Security even called him and let him know, like, hey, we know that you're the only one that can really keep peace in this area. Whatever resources you need from us, let us know. So yeah, just a ton of, a lot of weight on his shoulders to say and do the right thing. And so when we went through the whole spiel with the mayor, going to the meeting and things like that, and people standing up and talking, of course, everybody was calling for him to resign. But the fact of the matter is, he's not going to resign. So he went through and he walked him down now on where he was wrong at and everything. But then at the end, he forgave him because he said the thing is, you're not gonna resign. So why am I gonna sit up here and let my blood pressure go through the roof when you ain't going nowhere? And I can reach you because you have a heart of stone. I can reach you by just forgiving you and walking away, because then you're gonna say, okay, well, why he forgive me? Because he's not. Most people gonna think that he's not even worthy of that forgiveness or whatnot. But it was amazing to see him do that. But it's just with our black leaders, we've been so accustomed, and I think this is not necessarily a white issue, it's a black issue as well. We will walk our leaders right up to the water, and then when they turn around looking at us for support, we gone because we ain't about that life. And it's the same way with Colin Kaepernick. And I'm not knocking anything about him kneeling, but like he knelt and then he kind of went silent, and we didn't know what the movement was, and everybody's just kneeling and we don't know what's going on. And I think Colin and even some black people, you got to check yourself. And you got to have that Malcolm X mentality, like it's by any means necessary. And it's not just when it comes to your family. It's about your entirely livelihood. You got to be ready to go down for it. And if you're not ready to go down for it, that's why people ain't out at these protests. And that's why people are not speaking out against it, because they don't feel strongly about it, because this is an issue.
But the thing is, they are out there.
Yeah. I think I'm not saying everybody, but
of course I know. But that's what I mean about the comfortability.
Right.
I think that we haven't found what's worth dying on a hill for. Right. Now, I'm not making it seem like this is a light price to pay, but what I am going to stress is we paying it already. Right. I do think it's the right way to do it. I think it's a wrong way to do it. I would love somebody else to come lead, but I was even sharing this. I think a part of me is terrified I don't have what it takes and I'm not who my ancestors was. I think that's something we have to face as well, because we do have to do this. We don't have a choice. It's more so now, well, how would we go about doing this? But to actually opt out is not an option. It's not an option.
I had to walk my heritage back, man. I had to walk, like, just kind of go back in my family tree and to get myself, because I was thinking it's the same way, when you come into the church and you're thinking about God's love, you're unworthy. Like, I'm not worthy of it. But that's a slap in the face to him, because he died on the cross for you. So had it just been you, he would have done it. But I had to walk my lineage back to see where I came from. And I didn't have to go very far. My granddaddy was the first black bus driver in the city that we live in. He was the first black man to hold the department. He was the first black department head in that city. And I think about that was only roughly 30 years ago, like 84, 85 was when he took office. And I had to realize he's dead and gone now, but I'm cut from that same cloth. I'm cut from that I'm cut. I don't have to look back very far. Like I said, my grandmother, and that's the thing coming from Mississippi, man. Everybody got a story about, Freedom Summer and stuff like that. Our neighborhood's got all the monuments where Dr. King came to the neighborhood and all of this stuff. But I don't have to look back very far. And I really had to check myself. And I think, like you said, everybody's got to figure out what their price is. My price is I have a child, so I'm no longer living for me. I'm living for him. And what would they say about his daddy when he's dead and gone? Did my daddy stand for something, or did he just try to give me the best life and not really, not make a change? And I would rather go out broke, but knowing that I made a change, something that can set the world on fire that he can get inspiration from.
But I don't know if it's so much as we don't have the courage that our ancestors had. I think it's more so we had a level of comfort and, I guess, privilege to an extent. You know what I'm saying? So now we at the point to where it's dead smack in our face. You know what I'm saying? Like we gotta get back. We gotta get back to what we used to be on. You know what I'm saying? And now we, out of all the police brutality videos we've seen, now we're having a conversation like, dang, I might have to lay my life down in that situation. You know what I'm saying? And that's the price we got to pay. You know what I'm saying? I just ain't never been this big book person reading and everything like that. But that's what I got to get up on now. You know what I'm saying? We got this nonprofit organization. We got the gift organization. For me, it's like we're going to build our own. I'm done asking people who don't want me included, you know what I'm saying, who want to give me little pieces. I'm done asking y'all for help. You know what I'm saying? Let's build our own. So we got this gift organization, and that took a lot of time, a lot of stuff, doing a lot of stuff that I don't want to do. I got to get that cracking. You know what I'm saying? So, I think, it's the culmination of just all the other murders. I think us sitting in the house behind this quarantine, you know what I'm saying, that kind of made us a little irritable, you know what I'm saying. Some
But
of that,
you see how quick racism took a lead over coronavirus. Like it was coronavirus and everybody was just trying to make it, and then the second Atlanta opened up, black men get killed, and a few weeks later another black man get killed. And it's like how racism jump over coronavirus just that quick.
And can I tell you what's crazy that I observed, y'all? Racism is so white that I realized the men who killed Ahmaud Arbery, George Zimmerman, and there was another one, a vigilante, white vigilante. You don't even got to be white to you don't got to be a cop to commit murder on somebody black. They'll advocate for you if you white because they want to see all the facts. That's how like American killing black people is. Like you don't even got to be a cop. Like why are we bargaining with y'all over two men who killed another civilian? Yeah. Do you hear what I'm saying? There's no detective work involved. That's not required this go round. You know, and it's realizing that they knew that they could do it. I think that's what's the most disturbing. And even when I would love to think that we don't need anybody else, but we are commissioned to cover the least of us. So even watching Candace Owens go on her little spew about how black people are the only people group who will protect the murderers and who will protect the thieves and the least of our society, I even think it's that mentality. I'm not even willing to offer you up the least of our society. You know why? Because everybody has a right to a speedy trial and due process. So whenever you get done, I'm not even willing to give you the least of these, to do whatever you will with them. And I think that's part of the problem. So I think watching all these allies come and stand next to us, because I am so exhausted with white fragility. And I can't say at a time like this, I'm really hurt by the white evangelicals I know in my own life. A lot of them, it's hurtful because I feel like we don't love the same Jesus. I don't know what Jesus you know, but I don't know what's happening. And then watching the conversation turn to like, if you're not praying for peace, it's divisive versus black people wanting justice. And all I could think is the Lord came with a sword to divide righteously and not what I think. So when I hear the slogan, it's everybody against racists, it's really not hard. It's really very easy. It's righteousness or unrighteousness. So I think that for a long time, even myself, I've been consumed with who isn't standing for me versus who's standing beside me. Yeah. And at the same time, I know that I need you to do this. It's our responsibility to do this. You know what I'm saying?
I'll say racism it's a white issue. It's a white issue that they gotta self-check because it's their issue within they can't accept the color of our skin, that we're different. They feel that we're inferior to them. We can't change that. They gotta change that. And then they also, this is what blows my mind. So they've been taught to be, or taught that they're better than, they're more than us, they're the superior human being. So if you're the superior human being, why do I have to educate you on what's going on? You should already know. Exactly. It does not take. I was watching Shannon. Yeah, I was watching Shannon Sharp, and he was like, "Why do I have to tell you how to treat me? You know how you want to be treated. So when you treat me differently, you don't think that bothers me? Like you the most, or y'all are quote unquote the most educated, the most superior, inferior. That's what you've been taught to. I mean, superior. That's what you've been taught to believe. Why all of a sudden you want my opinion? And I think what ticks me off about it in corporate America, I don't want to get on no Zoom call or no Microsoft Teams call about my CEO who's a white man sitting in wherever on the lake telling me something about racism because you don't know. Yeah. You don't have a clue. It's not, you just doing something to make you feel good, to say you did it, to check the box off, to say, okay, well, Cerner covered this, next. Yeah. And I ain't with it. I have not attended.
But how does it feel to be challenged that maybe a price that we have to pay is explaining? Well, I don't want to say explaining. I want to say educating, because proximity really is everything, and that can be a positive thing. Like, I hate being the black woman in the room, the woman in the room that they're looking to, who's well-spoken, articulate, educated. You should represent the whole. The minority of you suck, but you're good people. Where's the rest of you at? I hate that feeling. And when they realize I'm black for real, it's always like, oh, wow.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, she's
So
gonna get
Seems
the,
like it's fair.
she knows the logistics. She's gonna get the law involved. She'll go the
yeah,
legal route. So I
yeah,
think even then, it's a part of it is when are we gonna do our due diligence?
yeah.
Because
Nah,
it's still something that is required of us too.
I
Even
don't.
in the midst of all this, I want y'all to
Oh,
know, I
why
hate
though?
saying this out loud. I don't want to be accountable, but it's like I have to be willing to bear the burden with my brothers and sisters who are not black in their
yeah,
ignorance. I'm not going to do it well all the time. Right now, I have zero tolerance. I've been telling people to go to hell. Y'all pray for me. I've been telling them to their face, go to hell. Pray for
yeah,
me, please. But I do realize I cannot give up because it's a mandate given to us. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? So it's our job. You know what I'm saying? And I think that black people are here to proclaim the glory of God as well. And we need to take up space doing that. Now, if you want comfortable, you can take that to your Jesus or whoever you got going on with it. Y'all do all that. But as for me, I remember here recently I was on somebody's post, and this woman who I know who happens to be white. She's not a white woman, she happened to be white. She said, Sherry, I'm just so glad you haven't left the church. And I just said to myself, girl, I ain't never leaving Jesus. Y'all didn't give me Jesus.
Yeah.
I ain't never. What Jesus got to do with you? You feel me? Like, I ain't
Right.
never leaving Jesus. Don't
Right.
don't fool yourself. Don't
Yeah.
fool yourself at all. You know what I'm saying? But it's a conversation that needs to be had, even though it's tireless, it's exhaustive. But I don't think we should not do it. We have to do it. It's a
I don't
part of paying the price.
like.
We have to do it.
I feel like we play a part, but I don't think the responsibility is ours. I feel like it should be. It's at least 50-50, minimum 50-50.
nah.
You know what I'm saying?
I don't believe that at all. I believe in total independence of us as a culture. I feel like we should stop being dependent on, like, we should just stop being dependent, because honestly, we don't have to be dependent on white America. And I'm waiting for black people to realize that. But before we switch to talking about the what to do to change it, I wanted to just brush over the last few things. So talking about people to step up, I feel like people don't understand, like, it's time for them to play their role. I feel like a lot of people are just like, all right, I want to be the face of this movement, and if I'm not the face, I'd rather not do nothing, or this ain't my thing because I'm not the face of it. And rather than being like, all right, I can be just this little piece and move along this engine, and then whenever my time is here to come and I can be the face in that moment, or be that person in that moment to shift either a white person's mind or build the next young black person's mind up to be a better leader than what you are in that moment. I feel like people just don't understand roles. So when you were like, oh, I just feel like I'm tired of being that black person that's the barrier into what translating black culture and black hurt to another white person, that's your role. Like I feel like in a lot of instances there's and it sounds whitewashed to say, like, there's the black person that allows another white person that's unsure and on the fence about racism and not knowing what racism truly is, because their parents don't talk about it, but they display pure racism, and they're just like, well, I love this one black person, that's my friend, but I'm with this at home. So that one person that just flips that switch in that black person or that white person's mind on, all right, well, black people aren't thieves, black people aren't evil, like, they're regular humans. Like, it's people that play roles in many different ways. They just don't know it. And once we realize roles and weaponize our roles into just whatever of living, and not really caring about being accepted by white culture, and it honestly, I'm just gonna throw it out here like this. I don't believe desegregation should have ever happened. That's where I'm at in my mind. Because, like, once desegregation happened, I feel like we took a huge step back. Because then we started searching for, oh, well, that's okay for you to go do. You can go step outside that fence, yeah. Or we just got that shock collar on our neck, like, oh, we went too far.
Yeah.
And rather than just living our lives and building and being happy in our lives and living the life that God gave us, we have to look and see and get okay, like we have a higher superior that ain't God.
Yeah.
So, like in my speech that I gave at the protest, I even challenged, because, like I said, 80% white city. All of the championships that we have, football, basketball, baseball, was made on the backs of people like us. If we weren't there, they wouldn't have won them. So I challenged the black residents in our town. If what the mayor said offended you, if you want to see action, you don't buy a thing in this county. You go over to the next city and buy. You go to Walmart over there. Now, granted, you still giving money to people that don't look like us, but you shop where they at least accept you at. Don't shop where they don't accept you at. I was like, don't buy gas, don't buy food, don't buy anything. And I guarantee you, if 30% of this population does that for a week, these business owners will be at City Hall like, hey, he got to get out of here because he hurting us. He hurting the city or whatnot. And I encourage the parents, with all this COVID-19 stuff going on, kids can transfer schools to different districts. Pull your kids out of this district because they're going to go win a championship for a city that doesn't represent them. Take them across the river. Take them elsewhere to another city, somewhere that's going to accept them. That's going to, because like I said, the championships in sports, we're the number one rated school district in Mississippi. That's made up by black kids too. White kids ain't just pulling that by themselves. Pull these kids out, because our last valedictorian was black. Pull these kids out and take them elsewhere. And I guarantee you, within a week or 2 weeks' time, they're gonna be at that. Can y'all play? All right, whatever y'all need, we're gonna do it. And that's the way. That's how I feel. I've been trying to find the black banks here and pull my money out of Bank of America and take them over there, because when
Liberty
I need a loan,
shout out to Liberty Bank. Liberty Bank, black-owned bank. Rock with them.
I've been eating black, eating whoever serves the black people that own black business. I'm forward.
But on that though, like I feel like my pastor said something that was so good. Like he said he was reading a book. He said there can be racism, but no racists. And that's because there are systems that were implemented hundreds of years ago by racist men to keep us oppressed. So like in the business sense, okay, like that makes sense. Like we can begin to do stuff like that, pull our kids out, Division I footballs, and some arenas I believe we can implement. But I do believe there are other arenas where we will need help from white people. We will like just for example, like you think about just the penalty for crack cocaine versus
powder cocaine.
You know what I'm saying? Powder cocaine. You know what I'm saying? Like that type of stuff is going to have to be combated in a judicial system. You know what I'm saying? We're going to need to vote. We're going to need to, you know what I'm saying? We're going to have to break these entire systems down and restructure them to include us. You know what I'm saying? So like I feel like our little 10% in our in the nation is not going to be enough to wreck that by ourselves. You know what I'm saying? So like that's why we need white people. Like with business, I feel you on that. You know what I'm saying? Like I was talking about the organization, like like let's do the Black Wall Street. Like we can we can keep the black dollar circulating. Like that makes sense. You know what I'm saying? And respect is in the sense of Division I sport. Like sports are huge, regardless if we want to admit it or not. Sports just run stuff. You know what I'm saying? And like I was kind of trying to defend Pat Mahomes because it's Pat Mahomes, you know what I'm saying, when he wasn't saying nothing at first. Like, oh God, Pat. You know what I'm saying? But it was very necessary that he said something in this climate. Like, I don't care that you are just a football player. You don't just throw the football. And that's what white America tell them, shut up and just dribble. You know what I'm saying? Like, you need to speak up. You need to take a knee, Pat. You know what I'm saying? I need that video. So, yeah.
I feel like it's.
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Jimmy.
I agree, though. Like it's gonna take a complete and total like reformation of the system. Like obviously it's not gonna happen overnight, but now is the time to start. And what it's gonna take is the reformation of the entire system, because once again, as we all know, the system was never built for us.
Yeah.
So how do we get the system where it is for us? You have to reform it.
Yeah.
You have to reform it, and that's what it's going to take. It's going to be a lot of work.
And you have to single out an objective, I think, too, Jamise. So that's I'm gonna let DJ go ahead and spin us into the next segment. But to me, like the problem is we can't. It's hard. We got to narrow down a target, and I think another issue in not only the Black community, but with everybody else who ain't Black, because I'm going to say everybody else who ain't Black, is number one, they feel so entitled to the culture because it's ingrained in the nation. It feels like white people don't ever want us to do anything without them. That's like literally the truth.
That's why all lives matter.
We're under so much scrutiny all the time and so much hate because they can't participate. But what I am gonna say is this: we have to stop using this narrative in our nation of those are black issues. These have to become human rights issues. Period. I need everybody who's a part of the LGBTQIA community to look at this like that's a human rights issue, what they doing over there. Because, and that's a whole other conversation, because sometimes I feel like they ride the civil rights movement on the backs of black people, but we gonna separate that.
I need to hear it.
We got
that's another time, Cornell. So because we can, you know, but what I'm gonna say is it has to be a human rights issue. So a lot of our white comrades I'm seeing waking up, I don't want to fault them for just now waking up, because I think they're waking up to the fact that what happened was inhumane. Not just because he was black, but because, like, hold on, that's, you know what I'm saying? It's like it's a human rights issue. And a lot of things that are ingrained into our legislation and everything else, they human rights violations. Like, that's just period. They just are, and they have to become an issue where we as human beings stand together and cover each other. First of all, we footing the bill. So we definitely need to have more of a say-so. And I think we need to be speaking in the right direction. So it's not like the people who spending their money and footing the bill for all of these people to work for us aren't saying anything. They're just talking in the wrong direction. They're comfortable with it because they're benefiting from it, obviously. So I think once our conversations change and our money support where our conversation is going, then we can actually change the narrative, and we can implement change and dismantlement.
Yeah. Now, so you saying, before I spin it to the next subject, I feel like we're right on the subject, because we're talking about, like, I'm just waiting for everybody to just voice what they're aiming for to see us change. So, and for me, example, like, like everybody's talking about voting and changing the system, right? Like, what part of this, like, my understanding of how to really shake it up is once we vote locally and shake up from our judge and mayor, police chiefs, etc. Like, that's when we're gonna see true change. And I made a post not too long ago because of the all lives matter thing. I was like, so when you're standing right there in that booth voting, is it, oh, only my life matters, or is it all lives matters when you're voting in that moment? So is it a selfish thing and you're not thinking about that black person, which all lives matter, or are you just like, oh, this is just who I'm gonna rock with because they for me?
That's a good one, man, because typically for me, I'm not gonna lie, when Barack Obama was president, I voted for him because he was black. Now, I voted for him because I liked things that were on the ticket, but let's just be honest. I voted for him because he was black. I voted for him because he looked like me, and it was the first chance for him to get in office, and I felt like, especially even then, because, I mean, you had the Mitt Romneys, the John McCains, it was getting racial then. I feel like Barack got my best interest, boom, that's who I'm going with. You know, and that's just how it is. Now, that in a sense may be racist as well, but hey, I'll admit it, because we got one and they had, you know, what is this, 45 now, so we got 1 out of 45.
Yeah.
I'm gonna take I just gotta take my odds on that one, man. But I think true change, like you said, at the level of voting, like I said, everybody can protest, but are you gonna show up to the meetings? You're gonna show up to the city council meetings, you're gonna show up to the alderman board meetings, you're gonna show up to all of these initiatives to push these things forward. Are you gonna show up for it? And that's where it really gets uncomfortable at, because when I flew home for the protest, and I could have been there just Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, and left and got back on the plane, but they had a runoff for alderman on that Monday, and then that Tuesday they had a actual meeting, what do you call it? Not supervisor, but a city council meeting. And I made it a point to stay there for that, because, like I said, it's so easy to just show up and get a sign and say your piece. But, you know, can you be there when they're making policy? You know, are you going to be that voice when they're making policy? Are you going to, you know, certain lawyers that you know, are you going to appoint them to be judges? Are you going to appoint them to be prosecutors or DAs and stuff, you know, to help, not necessarily help us, but to even this thing out? Because I feel like, you know, if you stay in a town where it's, you know, 80% white and you're only 20% black or whatever, you know, there should at least be 2 people on, if it's a board of 10, it should be 2 people that look like you. Like we should at least get that much representation, or give me a white person and a Latino person. Can't just have 10 white men up there deciding for everybody like it's been. So, on the school boards, things like that, that's where you're really going to start to see change it. Not just out here just with that sign, but are you going to get in? Are you going to offer your opinion? Because believe it or not, people listen. They really do. I didn't think, like I said, just the little stuff that I said, I didn't think, anybody was listening, but it took off, made the New York Times, and now I'm getting calls out the wazoo about doing interviews that I'm turning down because I just feel like some people are trying to ride the wave on it. And that, my thing, I was never trying to ride the wave. I was mad because it happened in my backyard. I feel like somebody kicked my back door in while I was laying down asleep. And, I had to get the thing and shoot. So, but yeah, we really got to, because it's hard for Black people to come together, like for us to organize it.
But I think that's because of the stereotypes we buy into in a lot of telephone. So like when I say telephone, it's kind of like saying, hey, voting don't work. Voting don't work. Voting don't work. Voting don't work. Instead of like, when I talk about due diligence, Black people still have to do our due diligence. We're not going to get out of that by the reformation of white people.
But see,
we still have to do our due diligence and being educated about those things, about when the voting takes place. Am I registered to vote? Am I a candidate who can vote if I have a previous record? Like, I feel like we're not doing enough personal due diligence. Yep. And some of that is because, we want our heads to be in the sand because, like I said, we're comfortable with the lifestyle that we're living because
I'll give you a good example. So Mississippi is a, Republican state. No matter, and this is what we're talking about, the systematic things. Like Donald Trump got in office off the Electoral College, not the popular vote.
Right.
So it's you really can't convince me that my vote matters on that level when Hillary Clinton won the popular vote and Donald Trump got in because of the Electoral College. So just say if I'm in Mississippi and say Mississippi votes for a Democratic candidate, the people that we elected can still go check a box on the Electoral College and flip the state back to Republican. So it's hard to convince people that their votes matter when we're talking about Electoral College. So, like I said, where I'm from, it don't matter what you vote. Mississippi is going to be Republican. Probably the same way here in Missouri. I mean, it looks like, it's just, it's necessary. And like I said, I do believe voting matters. I sacrificed my freedoms and served in the military so that people had a right to vote. Went through everything with civil rights, so people had a right to vote. So I'm a big advocate of voting, but it's hard to convince people that voting matters when the majority of America decided that Hillary Clinton should be president and we got Donald Trump in office right now.
But I don't think we had enough confrontation about it. Like right now, I feel like we have a lot of audacious confrontation going on that's making people uncomfortable, and it's enough numbers to make people uncomfortable. It's enough eyes on it to make people uncomfortable. But it does start at those small levels in your own cities and your own hometowns. Right. So for instance, a lot of what I've been hearing about is even things that are sounding ridiculous. I never even thought about the concept of defunding the police until I found out how much money we're putting into the police, but we're defunding everything else. So then it makes me say, my uncle's a police officer in Georgia, in Athens. And I remember one time we was having a conversation after one of these young men died, and it was Philando Castile. He said, the thing is, Sherry, we call the police for everything. It's not you don't need a gun in every situation, So it's kind of like, well, maybe we should change the way our first responders are responding, because it can't be the police. Because in my mind, when I think about defunding the police, I saw people saying, what are we going to do about the criminals? And all I can think is, what are we going to do about the crazy white men? Because to me, they are the criminals, Yep. I'm not talking about petty crime, what I'm saying, petty Black crime. I'm talking about mass shootings, murders. No, you need to go get him. You got a gun. You need to go get him. So what I'm thinking is, how many people did we see that were murdered and mishandled who had mental health issues or were on the spectrum, and they didn't get the care that they needed by somebody who didn't show up with a gun? So it's like, when you think about it, it's like maybe we should be pouring. I'm not saying don't pour any money. You know what I'm saying? But maybe you should have more requirements, and it should be a limitation on the amount of police that we have available versus first responders with different type of skill sets that can also respond. I even had a gentleman that I know who used to be in SWAT tell me, well, you know, if they defund the police, the police officers might feel like, well, for the pay, I'm not going to an area that doesn't belong to me. So like I told him, it's still that all or nothing mentality. If I can't have what I want, I'm not going to show up. Well, then you don't need to be serving. Yeah. It's a servant job. You a civil servant. Like, we paying you. You know what I'm saying? You know the job description. You know how many Americans working a job they don't like right now? You ever been into a fashion bug? You feel me? I know the men don't know what I'm talking about. You ever been into a rainbow? Okay, you ever been somewhere they got attitude that they working? You feel me? So I think just our minds changing even around that is like, that does sound good to put more money back into education. It does feel good to put more money back in these underprivileged areas. And as a taxpaying citizen, I would like to have more control over where my money is going. Because I personally lived in a state where you giving some kids school buses and some kids ain't got no school buses at all. And I'm trying to figure out how is that working out. Because that don't feel like we splitting the pie how it should be. You know what I'm saying? So I think even chasing after that, like, idea of like, no, well, this is for this and this is for this, but people are suffering, but it's money available. That I'm confused by that.
Yeah. So my thing on like the entire what do we do next? Like, I have the entire journey, this entire process I honestly believe we have to go through in order to see some sort of progression truly in the nation. And I alluded to it a little bit earlier. You know what I mean? So like, with the awareness, like, we have to know what's going on. We like us doing this podcast. I feel like we on point. Like, this is necessary. You know what I mean? All the people chimed in. I feel like the social media statuses, the protests, all of that. I feel like it's definitely necessary. Patrick Mahomes speaking up. You have to. People have to know what's going on. And then from that point, I think it's educating ourselves, having those conversations and talking about it. You have to educate yourself. I don't think we're necessarily to the point of coming up with a full plan because we're not fully educated on what we should do next. It's not just a one thing fix all type of deal. You know what I'm saying? Like, we talking from school systems, we talking to businesses, we talking to laws, we talking to, like, it's so much. You know what I'm saying? And we truly have to. I'm still learning. I'm still learning what I'm up against as a black man. You know what I'm saying? Like honestly, just keeping it a buck. Like, I still fully don't understand what I'm up against, but I'm peeling that scab back more and more each day. It's like, oh my God, you know what I'm saying? So like, we have to educate ourselves on that. You know what I'm saying? And then once we are educated and like you said, like the Donald Trump thing, I appreciate. Like, I'd rather know what I'm fighting. You know what I'm saying? I'd rather know what I'm up against than you sitting here stabbing me behind my back, making me think that you my dog, that you my homie, that you my friend. Like, at least I know what I'm fighting. You know what I'm saying? Right. Now that I know what I'm fighting, now that I know what I'm up against completely, then we can start to implement. Okay, we need to get congressmen here. We need to get organizations here to fund black-owned business. We need to get banks here to give loans away. We need to put schools here we're just gonna have to start making kindergarten. You know what I'm saying? And make sure these babies are getting what they need.
But then what the question is, before we start moving these chessmen around, what is the objective? Because that's not going to change. And I feel like sometimes when it comes to us, we don't know what it is. So for instance, my objective is not to be independent of white people. That's not my objective. I don't want that. I want us to, of course, be liberated in a lot of, instances. But I mean, I don't want to live separate from white people. You know what I'm saying? That's not my objective. Like, that's not. So then we got to ask ourselves, okay, well, what is the objective for real?
Okay, yeah, I feel you.
So I think that needs to be the conversation before we talk about defunding police or anything else. Like, what are we doing this for?
So that's what I think.
Right, and that goes with knowing your rights too. Like,
I think that's where
we need to know our rights. Like, we say this is a human rights issue, right? Mm-hmm. Do you know how many human rights that there physically are? Like, we need to know what those human rights are.
Yeah.
So that we can know what we're about to do. Because do we need more of these laws, or how are they going to be implemented? How do they affect us? Are we being treated fairly as far as these rights that are already written, human rights already written? Like, are we being treated fairly with the way that they already are? Like, are they being implemented? Are we
We definitely know they're not. Yeah.
Are they
They're not
against
being
us? Like
implemented.
what is already there, and that goes with what C was saying, like making sure that we're educated, and then on top of that, that just goes with making sure what Sherry said, having the objective for what we're about to do.
So
So
yeah, we will have to come up with
understanding
an
the
agreement on
human
that.
rights and the laws that are already there, and making sure that they are one for us or against us or whatever the case may be.
Because let me say this: because as a Black Christian man, I'm not. My objective, my goal is not to be above white people. And to a degree, I feel like that's what some people want. Like some people want revenge, like kill them all. You know what I'm saying? And I
Yeah,
ain't.
you can't be with
Yeah,
that.
I'm not doing
Man.
that. Even the
Yeah.
brothers, I love the brothers who are part of this Black Hebrew Israelite. Like, listen, I love y'all. That's not gonna never change. But I also feel like a lot of people have a lot to profit off of our pain, because it is different objectives out there. And I actually want to hear from you, DJ, because you shaking your head, and I just love hearing you talk because you sound like a leader to me. So I really want to hear what you thinking about, because you've been kind of quiet.
No, so when you brought up the whole you want to control and facilitate where your tax dollars are going, I've been saying this for years, bro. Like high school, before I was even paying taxes, bro. So, like, I just don't. I don't think people I don't think they understand like the so-called founding fathers of America ran away from Britain because they didn't want to pay taxes. So here we are. They ran away from paying taxes, but we are governed and forced to pay taxes. It's not an option.
Yeah, to only
But
certain
yet we
people.
have no say so where our tax dollars go. For one, I don't think people understand that we employ the president, we employ our governors. Like, I feel like we've been manipulated into where we think we're under a dictatorship when we're not supposed to be under a dictatorship.
Right.
We believe, all right, if our president says this is how it moves, rather than if we tell our president this is what we want, this is how he has to move for us. And I feel like that's what I want. Like, whenever I say vote and do it through politics, I want people to understand you will power when you vote. And for you to point out the electoral college, yeah, like that does swing it. It swings it drastically. But when I do plan to vote, that's why I say if I vote, I want to do it with a collective and know that I have numbers and go to the candidates and be like, this is what I'm guaranteeing you. Either you moving for us or we're not voting for you.
Yep.
And I feel like
have that power.
Yeah, I feel like that's when you go into those alderman meetings. Yeah, it's good for us to go now. That way we learn and see how they're facilitating and moving it. Because eventually when we do take over the polls, they're going to move the goal again.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Well, man, I hate to run on y'all. I got an engagement I got to make it to. But this dialogue was awesome. Hopefully we get a chance to do it again, man. Or we can do it next week. Hey, we do it again, man.
Hey, everybody, want to thank you all for tuning in today. Another episode of the More Than podcast. Make sure you like our fan page. But this is the I Need My Breath Back episode. We got Sherry, Justin, and Jameis on this time. All right, thanks for tuning in. Until next time.
Y'all be easy, man.
All right, y'all too.